The small bell above the bookstore door gave a soft ring as Barron Trump stepped inside. It was late afternoon in Brooklyn, and the shop was exactly what you'd expect from a place like this. Cramped but cozy. Books stacked in uneven piles, posters of progressive authors on the wall, and the faint smell of strong coffee and old paper lingering in the air. He didn't wear anything flashy. No security detail, no MAGA hat. Just dark jeans, a clean jacket, and a quiet look on his face. Anyone who didn't recognize him might have assumed he was just another NYU student. But the woman behind the counter? She recognized him the second he stepped through the door. She was in her late 40s, short curly hair, oversized glasses, and a tight smile that never quite reached her eyes. Barron walked slowly through the aisles, scanning the shelves. He was looking for something very specific, a signed first edition of The Courage to be Disliked. It wasn't for him. It was a gift. For a children's charity auction hosted by veterans, the kind of thing he knew his mother quietly supported. He found the book, walked to the counter, placed it down. The woman didn't move. Instead, she narrowed her eyes and looked him over carefully, as if confirming a suspicion. "You're Barron Trump, right?" He nodded politely. "Yes, ma'am." Her mouth twisted slightly. "We don't sell to people like you." For a moment, the air in the bookstore didn't move. Barron stood completely still, one hand resting lightly on the counter, the other still holding his phone. The silence between them felt longer than it was, stretched thin by tension, disbelief, and a flicker of something colder beneath the surface. He looked the woman in the eyes. She didn't flinch. Behind him, two customers turned their heads, pretending to browse but now clearly listening. The soft jazz that had been playing overhead suddenly seemed too cheerful for the moment. "I'm sorry," Barron said calmly. "Is there a problem with the book?" The woman laughed once, short, sharp, humorless. "Oh, the book is fine," she said. "But I won't take money from the Trump family." Another customer, a man in a scarf and headphones around his neck, looked up sharply from the philosophy section. A young woman near the register paused mid-scroll on her phone. It was like someone had flipped a switch. Suddenly, Barron wasn't just a quiet young man in a bookstore. He was a symbol, a lightning rod, and the storm was starting. "I see," he replied, still calm. But the woman wasn't done. "We built this store to be a safe space," she said, louder now, clearly for the others to hear. "For voices that get drowned out by your father's policies. For people who've had to fight for their rights. You think you can just walk in here and buy your way into that?" Barron blinked once. Slowly. He wasn't angry, not yet. But he could feel the familiar tightening in his chest, not fear, not even shame. Just that cold reminder, he'd been judged before even speaking. Barron took a breath, slow, steady, and let his eyes drop for just a second to the book between them. So much noise for something so simple. "I didn't come here to argue," he said, his voice low but clear. "I came to buy a book." The woman crossed her arms, lips pressing into a thin line. "And I said no." He met her stare. "Because of my last name." "No," she snapped. "Because of everything that name stands for." She leaned forward now, no longer trying to keep her voice down. Her words were sharp, rehearsed, like she'd been waiting for this moment since November of 2016. "You think you can waltz in here, dressed like any other college kid, and pretend you're not part of that machine. That empire of racism, greed, misogyny, climate denial, and everything else your father and his enablers unleashed on this country." Her voice trembled now, not with fear, but with controlled rage. "And now you're playing the soft-spoken gentleman routine." "Nice try." Barron didn't move. He didn't smile. He didn't raise his voice. He just spoke. "Are you really that afraid of a 20-year-old buying a philosophy book?" That stopped her. Just for a second. He continued, quietly but firmly. "I didn't come here to campaign, or debate, or be anyone's symbol. I came here to support a fundraiser for children whose names you'll never know, because they're not on your wall of causes." The woman's jaw clenched, but she said nothing. "So if your version of tolerance means silencing someone because of their family," he added, "then maybe this bookstore doesn't stand for as much as you think." The woman let out a small, bitter laugh. "You're good," she said, shaking her head. "Too good. Almost made me forget who you are." Barron didn't respond. He didn't need to. "You're just a polished version of him," she continued, voice low now but laced with venom. "Same arrogance, same entitlement. You've just traded the red tie for a calm tone and big words." She picked up the book from the counter, turned it slowly in her hands, not reading it, just holding it like a weapon. "Do you have any idea how many people cried when your father won?" she asked. "How many people I've watched walk into this shop and say they didn't feel safe in their own country anymore?" Barron tilted his head slightly. "And you think refusing to sell a book to me fixes that?" She slammed the book down on the counter. "It's called accountability." He didn't flinch. "No," he said, still steady. "It's called cowardice." Her eyes narrowed. He leaned in, just slightly, not aggressive, but unshaken. "You're not protecting anyone. You're just performing, for them, for yourself, for this idea you've built in your head about who I must be." A pause, his voice dropped. "You don't know me." The woman laughed again, but this time it was thin, hollow, like a defense mechanism. "Right, I don't know you," she said, dragging out each word. "But I know the pattern. I've seen it since I was old enough to vote." She stepped back from the counter, arms folded tightly across her chest. "Entitled boys born into power, pretending to be deep thinkers. Quoting philosophers, speaking softly, wearing expensive jackets like you're not a product of everything your father built." Her eyes narrowed. "Must be nice," she said. "Living off his name while pretending you're better than him." Barron didn't react. Not right away. He just looked at her, not with anger, not with pity, just stillness. "I'm not here to prove I'm better than anyone," he said calmly. "I'm here to buy a book." She smirked. "To look good in a headline? No," he said. "To raise money for disabled children who've never heard of politics and don't care what name is on the donation slip." That hit harder than she expected. You could see it. The faint shift in her posture, the way her eyes moved for just a second before snapping back. "You could have ordered the book online," she muttered. "I could have," he said. "But I still believe in walking into a store, looking someone in the eye, and treating them with respect." The woman leaned forward again, her voice no longer calm. It was sharp, biting, almost trembling with rage. "You walk in here like you're just some polite young man buying the book," she hissed. "But your last name carries blood, and hate, and division." Barron's face didn't move, not a twitch. She pointed at him now, finger fully extended. "Your father mocked a disabled reporter, caged children, rolled back rights, lied to the world. And you think you can just stroll in here, buy some paperback and act like you're different?" Her words were echoing now. The bookstore seemed to shrink. "You're not better than him," she spat. "You're just more polished, smarter maybe, but deep down, same poison, same agenda. You smile while your side burns the world down." Still, Barron didn't move. She leaned closer. "Let me be clear," she said. "This bookstore exists to fight everything your family stands for. We don't sell books to people who normalize fascism with pretty words." He took a breath, then spoke slow, even. "Are you finished?" The question landed like a slap, not loud, but final. "I don't speak for my father," he said. "And you don't speak for everyone who's ever walked into this store. You've decided who I am based on headlines and hatred. That's your right." He paused. "But I have a right too. The right to walk into a business. The right to stand here, quietly, respectfully, and not be called a fascist because of my last name." Her mouth opened, but no words came. "And if you think screaming at someone's son makes you a hero," he said, "you've already lost the argument." The silence after his last words lingered in the air, heavy, thick, almost unbearable. For a split second, the woman just stood there, face red, chest rising and falling. Then she snapped. "You know what's disgusting?" she barked. "It's people like you pretending to be victims. You come in here with your clean face and polite tone and think that erases what your father did? What your family continues to do." Her voice rose, sharp and trembling. "You people sit on golden thrones while the rest of us clean up the mess. And then you want sympathy, respect? After 4 years of cruelty." Barron didn't answer. Not yet. She stepped around the counter now, closing the space between them. "You think kindness makes you innocent, that charity work covers for the pain your name represents. You're just another privileged rich kid playing humble for the cameras." Still, he said nothing, until finally, quietly, he asked, "Is this what tolerance looks like?" That froze her. Just for a heartbeat. He didn't move, didn't blink. "You talk about justice, about safe spaces, about inclusion. But you just judged me for walking through a door and asking to buy a book." Her jaw tightened. "And if you really believe in peace, in change, in equality," he gestured gently toward the book still sitting on the counter, "then maybe the first step is letting someone read." Her lips curled into a cold smile, not amused, not kind. It was the kind of smile people wear when they've already decided who you are, long before you speak. "You want to talk about tolerance?" she sneered. "I don't tolerate fascists. I don't tolerate bigots. And I sure as hell don't tolerate Trump's spawn walking in here, pretending to be the voice of reason." Barron didn't flinch. She stepped even closer now, voice sharp as glass. "You want me to sell you that book? Fine. How about I wrap it in the tears of every immigrant your father locked in a cage? Want a bookmark soaked in climate denial and evangelical hypocrisy too?" Her words were venom, but Barron remained still, strong. He took one calm step back, not from fear, but to create space between them. Then looked her directly in the eyes. "You don't know me," he said again. "You don't even want to." "You're damn right, I don't," she snapped. "You're not welcome here. Not today. Not ever." She grabbed the book from the counter and shoved it into a drawer behind her, slamming it shut like a prison cell. "And if I see your face in here again, I'll call the police." "For trespassing, got it." Barron exhaled slowly. "You don't have to worry," he said. "You've made yourself very clear." He turned slightly, eyes scanning the shelves one last time, not out of regret, but as if committing the space to memory. "Funny," he added softly. "I came here to support a charity that believes every child deserves a second chance. But I guess in your world, people like me don't." He turned to leave, and just before reaching the door, he paused. The moment his hand touched the door, her voice cut through the air like a blade. "You know what I really pity?" She snapped. He stopped, didn't turn yet. "I pity the people who raised you," she said, spitting the words like poison. "Because they created exactly what this country doesn't need. Another cold, calculated symbol of privilege wrapped in fake humility." He slowly turned his head, just enough to meet her eyes. "You can hide behind charity," she went on, "behind well-fitted suits and calm speeches, but you're still part of it. The empire of cruelty. You were born into hate, and now you're here trying to whitewash it with a philosophy book?" Her laugh was dry. "You can't read your way out of what you are." The room was silent again, thick, dense, uncomfortable. Then Barron turned all the way around. He stepped forward, not fast, not slow, until he stood once again in front of the counter. And for the first time since he entered, his voice changed. Still calm, but heavier now, colder. "My father isn't perfect," he said. "Neither am I." He paused. "But at least he never pretended to love everyone while hating half the country in private. That landed." "You talk about cruelty," he continued, "but all I've seen since I walked in here is judgment, bitterness, and rage, from someone who claims to fight for love and justice. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. "And if that's what your tolerance looks like," he added, "then I'd rather be hated honestly than loved hypocritically." He didn't wait for a reply. This time, he turned toward the door without hesitation. The door creaked softly as Barron pushed it open, a gentle sound, almost out of place after everything that had been said. But before he could step outside, her voice came again, sharper, meaner, desperate. "Of course you'd walk away now," she called out. "You've always had people to clean up your messes." He paused, didn't turn around this time. "Just like your mother." Silence. Dead, sudden silence. "You're just her little puppet, aren't you?" she hissed. "Smiling when told. Posing when needed. Silent when it counts." Just like she was, standing next to him while the world burned. The words hung in the air, thick with venom. And still, Barron didn't move, didn't even breathe, it seemed. She laughed. Soft, cruel. "You think you're being noble? Calm? No, you're just weak, like her." Then, he slowly turned. And for the first time, his voice dropped into something deeper. "You don't know me," he said, "and you don't know her." He stepped back into the room, just a few feet. "She didn't stand silently," he said. "She stood with grace. While people like you mocked her accent, her style, her choices." His hands were steady at his sides, and she never had to scream to be strong. The woman's face flushed, not just with anger now, but with something deeper, something fragile, something unraveling. She reached into the drawer where she had hidden the book earlier and yanked it out, almost shaking with fury. "You think silence makes you noble?" she shouted. "You think this calm little act makes you better than me?" Barron didn't answer. His posture didn't change. "I've watched this country rot from the inside out," she snapped, slamming the book onto the counter with a dull thud. "And you walk in here like none of it touches you. Like you're immune, like you get to be the exception." She pushed the book toward him hard. "Well, guess what? You're not." He looked at the book, then back at her. She was breathing hard now, hands planted on the counter like a barricade. Her eyes weren't just furious, they were tired. Exhausted, but full of fire that had no place to go. "You can take it," she hissed. "Take your precious little book and get out. Pretend you're the bigger man. Add it to your charity story. Turn it into a headline. I don't care." Barron stared at the book for a moment. Then, slowly, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a $50 bill. He placed it gently on the counter, next to the book. "I don't need change," he said. She blinked. Then, without touching the book, he turned to walk away. And just as his hand reached for the door again, he said, softly, "One day, I hope someone treats you with the same grace you tried to deny me." And he walked out. The door clicked shut behind him. Outside, the city moved on, cars, voices, distant horns. New York never stopped for anyone, but for a moment, Barron Trump did. He stood still just beyond the glass, the book in one hand, the cold air brushing against his face. He didn't look back, not once, not at the shop, not at the woman inside, not at the words that had tried to brand him. Instead, he walked down the sidewalk, past strangers who didn't know who he was, and some who did. But none of it mattered now. He hadn't won anything. He hadn't shouted her down. He hadn't changed her mind. But he'd shown her something she didn't expect. That strength doesn't always raise its voice. Sometimes it just refuses to break. He reached the corner, crossed the street, and disappeared into the flow of the city. A young man carrying nothing but a book. And the quiet kind of dignity that speaks louder than hate ever will. If you believe that strength isn't about shouting the loudest, but about standing tall in the face of hate, then don't forget to like and subscribe. And let us know in the comments. What would you have said if you were in Barron's place? Would you have walked away? Or stayed and spoken your truth? This world needs more calm in the chaos. more dignity in the noise, and maybe, just maybe, more voices like his.